Okay. Um, Hi, Jack.
Adrian.
So first of all, after observing your lesson, I'd like to say that within this lesson, the classroom discussions you led were fantastic. I think it's really important for this age group that students are given the freedom to have an open discussion and think critically about the issues you were presenting. So you did a great job of not just feeding the students the answers, but allowing them time to think critically about each problem and then going back and relating their ideas to real life too. I think an area you could potentially improve on is management of students yelling out answers. I would like to see you introduce the procedure of students raising their hands in your classroom before speaking. At this age, the discussion is really important, but students really need to practice respecting one another and not interrupting others' ideas, which I saw happen a few times. Introducing hand raising as a procedure will allow students to take the time to listen to one another and process each other's viewpoints. So I see where you're going with the open discussion, but I think bringing a little more structure back into your classroom will allow you to see better results overall. Another procedure I'd like to know more about is your seating arrangement. From this lesson, it seemed like students were mostly grouped together by friendships and largely boys and girls were separated. Is that true?
Well, I guess since I'm pretty relaxed anyways, they kind of did that on their own, so I didn't really notice by design.
Yeah, I understand, especially for that age group, that they like to do that. With your students being that age, though, I think it's a really good time to allow them to integrate more with genders, and allowing the genders to mix also brings the opportunity for students not only to work with their friends, but gain new perspectives from someone who they normally wouldn't interact with. So see if you can mix up your groups more regularly.
If I mix up the seating arrangements with the people I know are louder or maybe sometimes interrupt, maybe I could also deal with that problem.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Next thing I really appreciated seeing in your class is the positive rapport you built with your students. You addressed your students by their names and not only allowed them to share ideas, but you truly acknowledged each answer. You didn't allow your back to be the students even when you were writing on the board. And I also noticed you were directing questions to them continually throughout the lesson and summarized their answers. So I found that to just be a great way to show that you value their answers, and it allowed everyone to hear and reflect on each student's input. I noticed also if you made a small mistake, you did acknowledge that as well, which lets students see that you are a human and you make mistakes too, and I commend you for that. I know students always appreciate that. So overall, all of these factors have created a really positive and warm environment in your classroom. So that was important to see, and you did a great job with that. Something I think you can elevate in your classroom, would elevate your classroom culture even more, would be to increase the energy you put forth in order to help your students engage more with the activity. They were attentive during your lesson, but not necessarily excited. I can tell your students really respect you as their teacher and listen to your instructions. But if you can project more energy into your transitions, especially, I think your students will really feed off that energy and engage more in the activities that you're giving them. And another area of your lesson that you really excelled in was your mixed use of different mediums for teaching. With your age group especially, simply lecturing them would not keep their attention, and I can tell that you understand that. So you saw you utilize discussion, group work, fun videos, and PowerPoint slides to help clarify the learning. I even saw you slid in some funny memes, which definitely captures student attention and is relatable to them. You kept it really interesting throughout the lesson, so I want to see you continue to do this as you go forward in the year. Another area you can improve on is showing more confidence in your lesson and making sure it goes a little bit smoother. I know that's hard day to day, but there were times your students seemed a little bit lost on directions, as during the transition, the pacing was a little quick, and with you giving out directions. You did ask if they understood several times, which was great. However, I think if you had the instructions projected on the board as an additional PowerPoint slide, It would help allow students to see the step-by-step procedure, especially as some of these students have pretty short attention spans, it seemed. That could help you out a lot. But I absolutely love that your lesson came full circle today and relating back to the whale posters you started the unit with. To continue to recap understanding through your science lesson, try to write clear goals and objectives on the board before the lesson begins so they can see, where you're going with the lesson each day. Finally, recapping ideas from group discussions. You did a really good job on that. After they had their group discussions, they're coming together as a class and recapping the ideas. I would work on recording these so students can visualize the perspectives from the different groups. Have you used a T-chart before?
No.
Okay, so this would just be a poster where you're recording their ideas. It's something you can keep in the classroom long-term if it's a really important idea. But even just writing on the board to recap their group discussions would be a great way to kind of go over their understanding and let them visualize that. You can even get your students involved in this by allowing one of them to come up and write an idea on the board, or each group write something. And I think that would help them feel more a part of the lesson. And as they respect you a lot as a teacher already, I think they'd really like that, getting to be the teacher themselves and interact with you more. But overall, I really enjoyed observing your lesson today, Jack. As I've mentioned, the classroom vibe is extremely positive, and I can tell students are interested and ready to learn in your class. You treated them like individuals by asking for their feedback and modeled really positive behavior to your students, such as listening and reflecting on their answers. I'd like you to have a goal of projecting more energy, confidence, and adding more transitions and procedures into your class. But beyond that, I think just keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. Enjoyed seeing your class too, as well, observing your class. I thought that overall it was a good class. The students were in it, they were involved. As soon as you got their attention, they were in their seats and ready to learn. So you start off with a quick chant, basically, to grab their attention, and that's good. They seem to respond well to that. And you immediately go and mention what you did the previous class. So it gives continuity to the previous lesson, so they can see kind of that, you're working towards something and giving it continuity. I like the fact that you really talk about the fact that you don't want them to be stressed while choosing a book and whatever reading level they choose. You don't want them to stress out by overworking. However, I guess room for improvement here could be that you often mention that things could be too hard for them to do. And maybe the language there could be used to where you challenge them or maybe incentivize them to try to get a book that's just right outside of their comfort zone, and so they can strive a little bit more, make a little bit more effort. As far as comportment in the class, it was pretty good out. There was one girl, or maybe two, that spoke out of turn. So also putting in the procedure of raising the hand and having them follow it. However you would like to instill that in them, I think that would be great. That would be a goal in terms of medium-term goal, maybe in the next few weeks. That'd be nice to see. I know it can't be done from one day to the next, but hopefully with the time. They weren't too disruptive, but a couple of times they did interrupt either their classmates or you. So if you could get rid of that, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely working on trying to get more control over those students, and I think having them raise their hands and especially get into that habit would help them out and help us listen to each other better.
Yeah, we're on the same page. As far as the transition goes, I thought your transition was very smooth. You explained it to them, and it wasn't a complicated explanation. It was just basically you told them if they remember where they sat in the last lesson or in a previous lesson. told them what materials they needed to take and just gave them a signal to come sit down, and it happened pretty much in 30 seconds, which is a good transition. They sat down, they were attentive and looking at your smartboard. I like your smartboard display. It seemed quite organized and it was going well, but the only thing I could really see was that one of the girls mentioned Lexile levels. And the other thing I could see in terms of your presentation that perhaps could have been done better is that she mentioned Lexile levels, and you say, okay, good, use that in the future. Now you're trying to get them to take a book that challenges them, but isn't too easy either. And basically a book that's around their level, and you're trying to teach them what characteristics they can see just on the cover, maybe the back of the book and the subject to choose that book. Well, I think it would be a good idea to sequence your lesson to where you start out with Lexile levels there, which gives them a range of where they could pick a book from. And
Okay.
Everything else you did, I think, was very useful. To look at the cover, spoke to them very simple, concise language. It seemed like everybody understood, so that was very good. I kind of tying into this, I like the way your rapport is with the students. They seem comfortable with you. They seem to respect you as well. So obviously that's a good thing. Your demeanor in front of them also is quite laid back, although sometimes it looks like you're a little bit nervous, for lack of a better word. And you kind of just creep to the side, and maybe a little bit more motion, a little bit more assertiveness up there would but of course, constructive criticism. Other than that, the class ended up on a strong note. When you got in the front of the class, a lot of them were participating, especially when you brought in a book that they all wanted to read, the little passage, the Harry Potter. Did you do that on purpose, or did you just happen to put that in, not knowing that they loved Harry Potter?
I had an idea, since it's pretty universal that kids love it, but I didn't know they would be that excited. And I am blessed with a really good class of students that interact a lot and are excited to want to read. But I think these tips would help this class, and maybe in the future too, having more structure if my students are not quite as excited for the lesson. And that would help me kind of still get their attention.
True. Other than the end, it seemed like the students, although they were engaged and participating, they weren't that excited. So also maybe energy level could be higher for you. Also, there were some lags between comments. I feel like sometimes there was too much dead time, dead space, no sound, where you were waiting perhaps for an answer and no answer came, or you were waiting to talk again. Relating more material that they like or that they can relate to, like the Harry Potter, would be a great way to get their energy up and to get them involved. So keep doing that. Keep great with your students, and sequencing. I mean, it was pretty much there, but maybe take into account the whole lesson and how you can make it progress in a sequential order that will benefit the students.
Yeah, I think that would help me save time too. Currently in the lesson, we do have kind of that time where I'm waiting and it eats up class time and we don't get always to the goal. So I agree that would help me move forward in a more efficient way.
Correct. But like I said, the class was really good. Hard to really find negative stuff, but definitely room for improvement. So in the future, maybe a plan or goals, midterm, short-term future, you could work on the sequencing of your lessons. Try to get a few of the students that talk without raising their hand to raise their hand. And also try to relate more stuff that is exciting to them so that they can get more into the lessons. That's basically what I got out of your lesson, but I enjoyed it very much.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate the feedback. I think that will help me elevate my classroom by using those tips, and I will try them out, and we can talk again about the progress.
Sounds good. I appreciate yours, and I definitely agree with the points of progress that I could take to better my classes, and I appreciate that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.